Hi everyone, A Loving Soul here. Hope this video finds you well. I want to talk about my 2020 KC Cup experience. As you can tell, I finally made it to Duel Level Max and I had a blast getting there. I did it with two rogue decks. I used Cyberdarks and Destiny Heroes. Pretty odd ball deck list that you probably don't see a lot nowadays. As you can see, I also finally maxed out on my gems. I finally at the cap. I'm pretty much just waiting to see what the next ban list will be, which is why I use these rogue decks, because I wanted to conserve my resources. In this video, I'll go over the two deck lists that I used and the general matchups I saw on my climb in the KC Cup, and I'll wrap up with some replay commentary. Let's get into it. Alrighty, let's go over my abomination of a deck list for Cyberdarks. This is what you get essentially when you have one copy of each structure deck and toss it together like a salad. But I had a blast playing it and I used it to finally get up to Duel Level Max. So let's go over the cards real quick. We have our first card, which is Desperado Barrel Dragon. This is from the EX structure deck. I only have one. It's essentially a backup boss monster. If any of your dark machine monsters get destroyed, you can summon this from the hand. It's quite useful to pop monsters with this effect. You essentially flip coins and you roll heads. You can pop up to 3 monsters with it. It's a big beefy body, but it wasn't like the main core of the deck. It was sort of like a backup plan. Next we have one copy of Keeper of Dragon Magic. This is from another EX structure deck. This is essentially another way to get our single copy of Neos Fusion out of the deck, and we use Neos Fusion in order to pitch our one copy of Neos from the deck, plus some useful effects like AD Changer and Bacon Saver in order to access our two Neos Fusion cards, Elemental Hero Brave Neos and Elemental Hero Neos Knight. The next part is our lineup of dark machine monsters. We have the one copy of Blast Spider. This can be used to 1-for-1 pop stuff, or sometimes we might be able to just set this as a nice defensive play because it has a nice 2200 body. And then the next is really the heart and soul of the deck. We have 3 copies of Cyberdark Edge. This is why I wanted to play this deck in the first place. So Cyberdark Edge has the ability to attack the opponent directly, even if they have monsters on the board, at the cost of reducing its attack points for that swing by half. It only has 800 attack by itself, but it can go up to 2400 if you attach a Cyberdark Cannon on normal summon, or another star of the show is Leng Ling. Leng Ling sets the Cyberdark Edge to 2500 attack, and it gives the ability to attack twice per turn, so you can potentially poke over someone's board for 2500, and that's quite a bit of damage. Like I mentioned, we have these two utility cards, Bacon Saver and AD Changer. They're used in conjunction with the discarding effect from the deck with Cyberdark Cannon when you swing with your Cyberdark Edge, or you can use them to pitch as material for your Neos Fusion. AD Changer is nice to flip like face down defense cards to attack position to get a little bit more of chip damage, and Bacon Saver is just a nice form of defensive options. The rest of the deck is pretty straightforward. We have one copy of Cosmic Cyclone. This could be another back row, but I just wanted some back row removal of my own as an option. And since we don't have a second copy of Neos Fusion, I decided to add an enemy controller. Enemy controller turned out to be really helpful because sometimes we get dead cards in our hand, like these AD Changers or Bacon Savers, and I would do a cheese play where I would tribute those cards and do an enemy controller take and combine that with a poke from Cyberdark Edge to get games oftentimes. And the back row are essentially flip down cards. There's a lot of tuners in the game, or really annoying effect monster in the current meta, so I wanted a way to stall the game so I could get those pokes off, and Canadia and Floodgate Trap Hole were the best options I had available. I'd probably run more Floodgates if I had the option to. As for the extra deck, we have the one copy of Brave Neos and Neos Knight. Almost always I went into Brave Neos if I had the option to play Neos Fusion. This is sort of just like a backup option. And the rest of the extra deck is just some generic synchro monsters, whatever you have available. In case you want to do an econ take play and you get a tuner, sometimes you can make some of these synchros. This never came up, but it's nice to have the option. Now let's talk about some of the matchups I saw on my KC Cup climb when I was playing Cyberdarks. So like I mentioned, there were decks like Dark Lords, so really big beefy monsters. The one benefit of playing Cyberdarks against Dark Lords is that sometimes they'll get caught off guard and they'll use their abilities that cost 1000 life points to access their spell cards and trap cards in the graveyard. and they'll chip themselves actually low enough where we'll be able to cheese them out with a couple Cyberdark pokes, or especially if you can get a Leng Ling on top of your Cyberdark and you can hit them for 2500, that's quite backbreaking. And this is why I really like the Sealed Tomb skill, because it can buy you enough time to get those pokes off. Other decks like Dark Magician is decidedly a little bit more tough, but sometimes I was able to get enough poke damage off and stall them out with cards like Canadia and Floodgate Trap Hole. It's really when they get the circle off that it's a little bit difficult, especially when combined with cards like Magical Navigation. You can shut down Navigation with Sealed Tombs, although it isn't as big of a deal in this deck. We don't use these spells and traps as much. As finally, there's always going to be rogue decks that you play against in KC Cup. I felt pretty comfortable in KC Cup, especially against burn or stall decks, because we don't tend to need to summon two monsters onto the board. We are usually happy with something like a single edge, and we can keep poking them. So I never really got lava golemed all too much with this deck, and we had like a solid game plan that we didn't really care what the other deck was playing. We could always just chip away at their life points. So that's pretty much Cyberdarks in a nutshell. I really enjoyed this deck, and it got us to what we needed to go. Let's quickly go over the Destiny Hero deck that I used to get to I think around duel level 18, which is when I switched to Cyberdarks. I opted to use Destiny Heroes originally because I wanted to swing over monsters and poke them with Anki. If you don't know, Anki is a 2800 monster that can swing similar to Cyberdarks for 1400, because essentially it halves its attack. So let's quickly go over the cards. Obviously I'm running Sealed Tombs just like my other Cyberdarks decks, because it's just such a powerful skill. Shuts down the graveyard and prevents shenanigans from decks like Shiranui, Dark Lords, and whatnot. Let's go over the cards real quick. 3 copies of Decider. This card was the MVP in a couple of the like burn matchups I actually saw, so like rogue decks. If you didn't know, Decider actually has 2 abilities. The other ability is that if you were going to take burn damage and this card's in the graveyard, it negates that burn damage and you can get it back. So it was quite nice. The second effect that it has, the static effect, is that only level 6 or higher monsters can target this card for attacks. So like decks like Dark Magician, Dark Lords, and whatnot, all these like big beefy decks, they can't actually swing over Decider, so you have some time to stall with a single Decider on the board, and you can get into like back row cards like your defensive back row, or you can maybe get 2 mask changes, and if you got earlier chip damage in the game, you could like poke them out for game. Next we have 2 copies of Celestial. This is our draw engine. If you have Celestial and another Destiny Hero or in the graveyard, you can banish them and draw 2 cards, but you have to have an empty hand. It was kind of useful. It's a secondary effect of being able to pop a face-up spell card. This came up in like the invoked Element Sabers matchup, where I was able to pop their field spells a couple of times. That's pretty much it. Just another Destiny Hero to thin out our deck. And then we finally have Drilldark. Drilldark is actually quite useful because it allows us to, 1, flood the board, and the second effect is Piercing. Piercing actually comes up quite a bit in the Shiranui matchup, especially since we have cards to flip down. Shiranui monsters all have 0 defense, so you can essentially get in 1600 poke damage, and combine that with your mask changes, you can get into Anki and really close out games really quickly. So obviously 3 mask change to get into our Ankis, and then we have 2 copies of Enemy Controller. Something like Destiny Hero Decider, Destiny Hero Drilldark into another Destiny Hero, and then you can econ take their monster and close out games that way. And the rest is just really defensive back row. I would run more Floodgates if I had them available. These battle traps are decidedly not the best. Wall of D is pretty good. I'd say Widespread Ruin isn't as good in this meta, but I didn't really have many other options. Feel free to tinker around with this. Extra deck, 3 Ankis obviously for your 3 mask changes, and a couple of generic synchro monsters because we have econ in the deck if you want to steal a tuner and combine it with one of our 4-star monsters. Overall, I think Destiny Heroes are a little weaker in the current metagame. I felt like they just were a worse version of Cyberdarks for me, but they definitely put in work to get me to the top to the top end of KC Cup, and I really enjoyed them. They're definitely out of the meta in their rogue deck, but I got quite a bit of OTKs, and that's pretty much why I think this deck can still survive in this current metagame. They're not the best, but sometimes you just get Drilldark plus another D hero and a mask change, and you can just OTK them if you're going second. Alrighty, we're going to be doing our final rank up match to dual level max for KC Cup with Cyberdarks. I have the deck list on the right side. Okay, so we're going first. And the first thing we do is we're going to pitch that Cyberdark Cannon in order to get Edge. Notice that we do have a Desperado Barrel Dragon in our hand, so what we're going to want to do is normal summon this in face-up attack mode. In case it gets destroyed, we can summon this Desperado Barrel Dragon. Not much else to say here. We got a Canadia to set up as a defensive option, and we're just going to go with it. Edge, normal summon, grab our Cannon, attach 2400, nice and beefy. Our opponent here sets a card face down. We have two options. We can either blow it up or we can just attack directly. The reason why I'm going to swing over it is because we have the Neos fusion off the top deck. So we're going to be able to summon one of our Neos fusion monsters. We're going to summon Brave Neos. And we tossed a Bacon Saver as another defensive option. And off this edge swing, because of Cannon's effect, we can toss the Leng Ling. Leng Ling's, once we attach this to another Cyberdark Edge, we have the ability to swing twice for 1250 twice, which is 2500 damage. We do see that our opponent has a yugioh here, so this probably means they're playing like Yubel or Nephthys or something like that. I actually saw that quite a couple of times. And we're going to see why Cyberdarks are so good against these types of decks. Really big, beefy monsters that we usually can't deal with. Our opponent uses their skill, Draw Sense Dark, so we know it's going to be Yubel. So they got a Yubel off their hand because we lowered the life points. They also play a Fire King's Island, so let's see how they set up their Yubel play. Fire King's Island pops the Yubel in their hand to get a yugioh. Yubel being destroyed allows them to summon Yubel 2. So Yubel 2 or Yubel Terror Incarnate is going to allow them to destroy every monster on the board at the end phase. In order to prevent that, we're going to just flip it down with Canadia. So our opponent's already pretty low. They're at 1400, so we know we only have to poke a couple more times. Because we get this Cyberdark Cannon, we're going to be able to close out the game here because we can get our second edge. And this edge is actually going to have Leng Ling, so it can attack twice. The only thing to note is that Yubel decks tend to run Kite Raid, which defends their life points if we do damage to them. But the second effect is when Kite Raid goes to the graveyard, they have to banish in order to take advantage of that effect. We can get around that because we're playing a Shizu, which has a Sealed Tombs ability. So we're going to prevent them from being able to banish in case they're playing Kite Raid. So we seal the Tombs, and we're going to double swing with our Cannons, and that's going to close out the game. So we ranked up to Duel Level Max with Cyberdarks, and I really enjoyed it. Alrighty, this is a second bonus game of Cyberdarks. This is just in KC Cup Stage 2. This is just one game I played for fun. We're going first again, so we're going to toss our Cyberdark Cannon. This is a little bit of a misplay because we should have probably just tossed the cannon itself with this Keeper of Dragon Magic, but it's not the worst because we can thin out our deck to get to our more powerful cards. So Keeper of Dragon Magic tosses one of our edges to get a Neos Fusion, and Neos Fusion is going to allow us to pitch Neos plus a Bacon Saver again. It's a nice solid setup. And now we see our opponent is playing some Blue Eyes variant. Very interesting. Protector with Eyes of Blue is going to allow him to summon Blue Eyes White Dragon. He's going to combo off with Keeper of the Shrine. And he's going to create an Armades Keeper of Boundaries. Armades' effect is that if he goes into battle phase and swings, you can't use any of your effects, which is why we couldn't use our Bacon Saver to protect our Keeper of Dragon Magic. We're going to let that go through, and then we're going to use the Neos Fusion effect here to protect our Neos. The reason why I used Neos Fusion's effect is that it's only going to, instead of Bacon Saver, is because Bacon Saver is universal, I can use it to defend other monsters. Our opponent's going to get to summon another Blue Eyes White Dragon at the end phase. We're going to go ahead and start poking with our edge. We're going to swing over with Neos over there to get rid of the Armades. I'm going to poke for 1200. So our opponent's at 2500. This is actually a perfect threshold for Leng Ling. Leng Ling plus this Cyberdark Edge is 2500 damage, so we just have to get there. We have to survive this next turn. Our opponent's going to try to tune with this White Stone Ancients with his Blue Eyes White Dragon, summon something like Vermilion Dragon Mech or something like that. We're going to flip it down, and this is going to let us win the game. It doesn't really matter if this board dies, we're just going to Bacon Saver just for the heck of it and thin out our deck. We get an AD changer off that mill, and we also get to draw. The cool part about the AD changer is it's going to let us get access to more damage. So I'll show you what I mean. So Cyberdark Edge is going to attach a Leng Ling. This is already 2500 damage, but just in case our opponent has more shenanigans, we're going to use AD Changer to flip up the White Stone of Ancients and swing over with our Neos, and our opponent scoops there. So a fun little quick one with Cyberdarks. Alrighty, we have a bonus clip of the final match I had with Sealed Destiny Heroes before I switched to Cyberdarks. So let's get started. I am going first, so I set a Floodgate Trap Hole. I'm going to set Widespread Ruin. The reason why I don't summon any of these monsters is that I am planning to possibly go for a cheeky OTK next turn with Drilldark comboing with Decider, and maybe we can like flip something down and take advantage of this Drilldark piercing damage. So that's the game plan I have in mind. Our opponent is playing Shiranuis, so this is perfect for our Drilldark game plan. We're going to be able to get that piercing damage in if we can flip one of them down. Our opponent's going to summon 2 Shiranuis. We're going to Floodgate this guy and take this 1500 damage. The reason why we did it this way is that 1500 means our 1600 damage Destiny Heroes can already naturally go over them. And then since the other one was 1800, we needed to have it in face down. So we're going to be able to clean up this board. We're going to steal the tombs because Shiranuis are very reliant on the graveyard, which is why I love Seal Tombs. We're just going to go ahead and play both of our Drilldarks. And we get a nice chunk of damage. So we get our opponent to 2300. Opponent had a gold Sark set, and he's going to go ahead and banish his Spirit Master and pop one of our Drilldarks. I'm going to pause here. Our opponent set up their tuner play, so they're going to start chaining. They're going to get into Shiranui Samurai Saga, and they're going to banish another card, and that's going to allow them to get their second tuner, and they're going to go all the way up to Shogun Saga. The only thing is Shogun Saga's second effect, which allows them to bring back a monster from the graveyard when he gets destroyed, doesn't really come into play because of Seal Tombs. And we're just going to clean out the game with a nice Drilldark swing. Our opponent scooped, so yeah, we had some slight success against meta decks like Shiranui with our sealed heroes. I hope you guys really enjoyed this light recap of my February 2020 KC Cup run. I really enjoyed it. I'm not going to play much in second stage. I really only cared about getting to Duel Level Max. I really wish that you guys got to the KC Cup standing that you wanted to. And if you didn't, there's always next time. And as always, I wish you the best of luck in Duel Links and in life. Until next time, peace.